I think it was the first time I ever did
Bam, we're
Murph.
live.
Oh, okay. I think
What
it was the
about your
first time
shirt?
I think it was the first time I ever did Murph. That I was at a track with a buddy of mine. It was probably 2014, and it was pretty brutal in the middle of it. And I just had this thought to myself that I was only doing it for myself. I know that the hero would have taken on a different meaning for me since then, but that was the original thought. And a while later, I made these shirts. Very simple logo. I drew it myself and had someone design it. Put it on this morning.
Audience of one. I like it.
Audience of one.
How many shirts of those were made? How many of those were made?
Maybe a dozen. Later on, I had a group of friends who were Christian, and they liked the concept, but I think more from a Christ-centered perspective. So I made the same logo, but instead of the man's shadow, it was a cross, and I made some of those for them. I'm not sure if I have one or not of those anymore.
We're early.
We're early. That's very unusual.
Since we're early, I would like to share some things. Someone sent me this morning. Have you ever seen these?
This better not be the Humbler again.
No, that was gross. The Humbler was disgusting.
Why did you do that to me? Couldn't you just do that on your live call-in show?
These are latex underwear that you can, if you think you're going to get oral, you wear them in advance.
So basically the same as the Humbler.
No, the Humbler was some sort of weird games equipment.
Same line of thinking, though.
That I think Rogue was going to make. I also saw this morning. Maybe
this workout will start with the Humbler and end with the Tumbler. Like that kind of thing?
The Tumbler. I also saw this morning. No, not Lauren's, but this. Did your working title change in the I'm going to read it. I'm going to edit this in real time. I apologize for whoever sent this to Lauren, but I think I'm going to read what I think you meant to write. Did your working title change at the Morning Chalk Up? And is that a promotion? She says, yes, now I'm working full time for Morning Chalk Up, which started this week. So it looks like they gave her a new shirt and a new title. And it looks like she's stealing the hairstyle of the three Plain brothers. Prior to that, I was technically a part-time contractor for Morning Chalk Up and working full-time at my CrossFit affiliate. But because I have a huge passion, because I have a huge passion for what I do, I ended up working 65 to 70 hours a week, leaving no time to hunt mates. Now I work at the Morning Chalk Up, and I have time to hunt down mates and provide high-quality content for the CrossFit community.
Did you ask her that question? Because you asked me that question yesterday.
What? Oh, hi, Caleb. What question? Whether she has a boyfriend or she has time to hunt mates?
No, about if her position at the Morning Chalk Up had changed.
No, I didn't ask her, but I'm
guessing
someone heard that question that I asked you and then posted it to her account. She says, now I'm full-time and I can really sink my teeth into my craft. I didn't want to give up coaching completely, though, so I still have a class at my affiliate. So she's moonlighting. She still should. It's still a lack of. Sorry, Caleb, I'm stealing your job. And finally, oh shit, my shit was live right there. What was I showing? Damn it! I shouldn't be doing this. Finally, Lauren Kalil says, I'm getting out of my at-home studio to go on the road and cover the Madrid Championships. Not bad for a first gig now that I'm a full-time YouTuber. All of this disgusts me.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I'm happy for the competition. Competition makes everyone grow. This is fantastic. So that's that. Someone in the comments yesterday on the show, we had a caller calling from Canada, and we talked about the injection during the show. And someone in the comments said, hey,
that's so great.
Enough of that. Stop doing that. This show is not for you if you want me to stop doing that. I say that with peace and love.
If you don't like it, you can just do what I do, which is, check your text messages while they're having that conversation and wait to get back to the topic at hand.
Although you did stick around for the latex underwear. but the tumbler did not interest you.
The humbler tumbler.
The humbler tumbler. Caleb, do you know what this show's about? I didn't send you notes. This is the 30 greatest women of all time. This is the list where Laura Horvath moved 5 places. What? Huh? Who?
The greatest women ever?
The greatest CrossFit women of all time who've ever stepped onto the CrossFit Games playing field. If you have competed in at least 3 CrossFit Games, you are eligible to be on this list. That's the buy-in. That's why Katie Henniger wasn't even thought about.
Nope. And Tanya Wagner, who has a better resume than Katie Henniger, but Barbell Spin did not feel like mentioning Tanya Wagner in this questioning.
That's because Katie makes more money.
Oh, so he's trying to appease Katie, and he doesn't care about Tanya?
So Tanya was only in the 2008 and 2009.
They both were there twice. Yes, they both were there twice.
I think Katie and Katie, I think, pulled out of the 2009 games.
Well, yeah, that might be. Tanya had a second and a first, and Katie had that obviously that win, and then the next year she's listed as finishing 62nd, but maybe she pulled out at some point.
The other criteria for making it onto this list, and by the way, thank you, Brian, for doing this. This is so cool. This list needs to live somewhere. I don't know why the CrossFit Games Morning Chalk Up or the Sevan Podcast has not made a page where this shit just lives. Like someone needs to just own this space. Brian's just putting it out there. Just steal his shit and put it out there. He's not factoring in team performances or outside competitions, such as Rogue, Wadapalooza, Dubai, etc. Primary statistics were podium finishes, top 10 finishes, number of years qualified, average finishes across a career, event wins. That you'll see more of that. You don't need to memorize that.
But the last bullet on there is probably the most important one that people are, I think, neglecting. And I knew that this was a risk by putting out so much data because I wanted it to be a little bit more transparent. Last year, we just had a list. And if Camille LeBlanc-Bazinet showed up 15 on the list, not a lot of people were asking that many questions about it. If Chris Spieler showed up 25th on the list or 24th, wherever he was, not a lot of people were asking that many questions about it because they're like, oh, that kind of makes sense. When you see the numbers alone and you don't think about anything else, there are certain athletes that look out of place high and out of place low because they might have an impressive number of appearances. And there are actually athletes that aren't even on the top 30 list that if you saw those numbers, you also might say, how come that person's not on the list? They have a much better average event finish over their 7 appearances than Margot Alvarez, who gets the last spot on this list, for example. But that's because of the last part, which is that the numbers don't always tell the full story. People who like what I do, they know that I like to use the numbers to drive thought processes and to try to arrive at conclusions. But there are always other things to consider. And, I'm sure other people have done this as well, but like I have gone back and watched every iteration of the CrossFit Games that I can at least 5 times. And in watching those things, a lot of times I'm looking at these athletes and I'm learning about them and I'm evaluating different things. And like, I think Michael Brink, who does the graphics for these, commented, it is true that I do factor in when they competed, where they competed, who they competed against when I'm, trying to make specific decisions. So in some cases, there might be a group of 3 athletes and I'm like, man, it's really difficult to delineate between these 3 athletes. And I have to go to a different, then that's where I have to bring in my, like what I know about the athletes, what I know about their games career, and all of those things start to come into play.
So ladies and gentlemen, there is a spirit of the games component to his decision-making.
There's just some things that you can't quantify with those numbers.
What would you, did you ever cross? Oh, I'm sorry. I must take this call. Welcome to the Sevan Podcast. And let me please introduce to you our best caller of all time, Mr. Who is it, Caleb? Tell me. Can you guess? Caleb? Oh, I can't hear you. Who is it, Caleb? Who?
The Mars? Mars?
Jeez. Mars is old. Mars is so 2021. Mr. Jamal Smith.
Oh. Thank you, guys. Good morning.
I haven't even gotten one question out, and you already want to hijack the show. Okay, give it to Brian.
Well, I I just wanted to ask Brian a quick question about the list. I know you're doing only the games experience for these athletes, but what do you think would there be a big difference if you did include some of the out of season events?
Oh, that's a good question.
For some people,
you're on a roll. That's three great questions in a row from you over a 3-week period. I appreciate it.
Oh,
well,
no problem.
Yeah, for some people, sure. Like Sarah Sigmundsdottir, for example, has a really good out of CrossFit Games season competition resume, and Kristen Clever, for example, has no resume because there weren't any out of season competitions for athletes to compete in when she was competing in the sport. So, although Sarah already is ahead of Kristen on the list, if you started to factor those things in, yeah, you could certainly make a case that Sarah could be higher, I guess.
Right. No, I think the way you do the list is perfect, but I just thought about that because another big athlete that I would say, probably the biggest athlete that would have the most impact is Roman Krenikov.
Yeah, obviously his games experience is limited, and then his out of season competition, he's got some pretty impressive results. Yeah.
Yep. All right, Sevan, you can have your show back.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Peace and love. I almost forgot about this show. Eat a dick. Okay.
Turn on your notifications, Michael. Jeez.
Michael Birch. Is that Jeffrey's son? That kid's too old to be Jeffrey's son. Brian, have you ever cross-pollinated the list? Have you ever looked at and seen what would it look like if Graham Holmberg's placement versus like Camille's placement? Like, do they have the same number of appearances? Do they have the same number of wins, placements, etc.? But then notice that Graham is like 25th, but Camille is 15th or some shit like that. I just made all of that up. I don't know if any of the data I gave you is right, but the spirit of what I'm trying to propose. Have you looked at that yet?
I mean, we did at all-time top 10, you and I, and obviously I evaluated more than 10 athletes before making that list. I don't really love doing it, male to female, because I think that the competitions are dramatically different, but I guess probably in the detail you're asking, no.
Because it is interesting there in your post on your Instagram account, which I'm sure eventually Caleb will show. There it is. Oh yeah, you already did show this. Sorry, Caleb, for that sassy remark. There is Camille at 15th, and in the comments, that is one of the bigger topics talked about. But when I think of Camille, I sort of think of her as a Graham Holmberg.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the comparison?
Sure. Graham Holmberg was 15th on the men's list.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Well, shit. Then I nailed it. I didn't even know that. I would have thought he was lower since the men's field is deeper.
I mean, yeah, she's got more of appearances than him. Obviously, the same number of titles. He actually has an additional. They have the same number of podiums, and they have. She has more appearances, more event wins, and a slightly better average. But in general, the women on the list have more appearances because there's less depth overall in the field. They usually can have longer careers and do better over time. So, for example, on the men's field, there are 2 people on the list, and Miko Sale and Justin Medeiros, who only have 3 qualifications. On the women's field, there's none. Everyone on the list has at least 4. And in the men's field, there's just a handful that have 8 or more. On the women's field, there's like quite a few of those, including, I think, I don't know, everyone who's off the list. There's some people with 7 that are off the list, but yeah. So it's just generally easier for the women to accumulate more appearances. Obviously, quality of those appearances still matters.
What time did you wake up this morning?
I'm tired today. I don't know. I slept a lot, but I'm just tired.
Have you taught a class yet?
No.
Did you work out?
No, I've been working on preparations for a competition I'm hosting October 1st.
What's the name of the competition?
I don't know. PFT Throwdown. It's 2 guys and a girl.
Oh, I like that. That's a good name. You're hosting it and you barely know the name?
It's just an in-house competition.
James, are you near an airport?
Well, yes, a small one.
Oh, interesting.
A small one, yes.
Because I'm hearing planes take off by Caleb and you. I'm wondering if you guys are in the same building.
No, just happenstance, coincidence.
Okay. The floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick because I called about 2 weeks ago talking about how I do not like Brian. And you told me to rethink it and come up with a more articulate explanation. And so I have spent the last 2 weeks reflecting, and I realized that I do not hate Brian.
Wow.
I do not.
Wow.
He is, in fact, a good dude. And
He's a
initially, I had
fag?
a
What'd you
hard
say?
time-
He's a what? He's a fag?
No.
Oh, I thought you just said he is a fag. Sorry, I misheard.
Oh no, I said he is in fact a good dude.
Oh, good.
I had a
Okay.
hard time putting the seal of approval on him, but after consuming more of his material, I reluctantly say Brian is a good dude. He is very objective. My only beef is that Kristen Clever would not even get in the top 40 in the CrossFit Games right now. But Brian, I'm sorry, man, you're a champ.
You mean so you're saying that at her peak, if we threw her in the mix, she couldn't make the games today at her peak.
Yes, we need to talk peaks.
Okay.
We have to talk peaks.
All right, James. That's good. We'll address that right now. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for you're growing spiritually as a human being.
I'm trying. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. People in the comments in the YouTube comments yesterday said you were sassy.
Me?
Yeah.
About what?
I have no idea. They just said you were sassy. Okay. So what about that? What about, let's talk about that before we dig into some more of the numbers. Do you take the athletes at their peak and consider what they would look like, the guys from the Stone Age to modern times?
I mean, that's tough. Like I've tried to do this with basketball in the past. I know it's not a basketball show, but if you took Dwight Howard's best season in the NBA, you might say he's the best center to ever play the game. He was literally unstoppable. He was 75% from the floor. He was getting 18 rebounds a game. He was blocking 6 shots a game, but he wasn't able to sustain those numbers over a long period of time. If you take Michael Jordan's best 5 years and look at them, all of them are like incredible compared to any other shooting guard that's ever played. It'd be like 5 of the best 10 years ever. So if you're just talking about peak, you're looking at 1 year, probably. And then that's a little bit different. And that's where you might, that's what I was talking about, a guy like Lucas Hogberg yesterday. Like he can't, or the last week, like he comes up, he has this amazing year. He was the 3rd best in a pretty competitive field that year. He's not in my top 30. He's not even really close to the top 30 because he wasn't able to sustain that over time. And I think that there's something to be said for that too. Kristen Clever, 4 years at the games, 4th, 1st, 2nd, 4th, and then in her 5th year, she took a 32nd. So her average or average placement's 8.6 is weighed down heavily by that 32nd. Over 4 years, she was averaging a 2nd place finish at the games, basically like 2.25 or something like that, which looks very similar to Julie Fouché, 4 years, 3.8. I don't see anyone saying anything really but negatively about Julie Fouché. And I have Kristen, a few spots ahead of her, having done it 1 more year, having gotten a win, having had a better 4-year stretch than she had. And yeah, maybe both of them would just get obliterated by the entire field right now. I'm not really sure. I think that they could both hold their own, maybe not be in the top 10 against the best 10 women ever. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I think that I saw that Justin Kotler put a little emoji in the comments, probably because he wants Gary Pierce ahead of Kristen Clever as the greatest American women of all time.
I found that post passive aggressive, by the way, Mr. Kotler.
That's what I'm assuming that he's referring to. And yeah, like when you look right there, I think Patrick Clark pointed it out, like 9 through 14 are the first American women that pop up on the list. And there's a string of 6 of them in a row. And it is, pretty difficult to say for sure if Christy Aramo is better than Julie Fouché or Kristen Clever is better than Carrie Pierce. Like this is an area where if you have that opinion that Carrie is better than Kristen, I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. This is just, how I ended up splitting those hairs.
Did you also have a rule? I feel like in the men's, you were very hesitant, or you maybe even had a firm rule not to move people around who you had already placed and hadn't competed. I mean, Carrie Pierce is often referred to as the greatest female American to ever participate at the CrossFit Games, and yet you have her behind Kristen?
Yeah, and that's really tough because you look at their resume. Obviously Kristen won one, Carrie didn't.
Kristen has 2 podiums.
Yeah, you're looking at there.
6 event wins.
Yeah, so some of her numbers are better. Carrie has 1 additional top 10. But like I said, if you take out that 1 year for Kristen, that event average drops to 2.25 over 4 years. It's like a pretty impressive 4-year stretch that's not very often replicable. And I weighed that pretty heavily.
The person who moved the most on this list is Laura Horvat. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was very, very little movement on this list.
And she comes up 5 places. Is it okay to share some of this stuff that you mentioned to me yesterday offline about Laura Horvat and about the way the events played out? And then from there,
yeah, for sure. That article is actually public on Morning Chalk Up now too.
Okay.
And they put a post up about it this morning that shows the graphical representation of what I was telling you.
Which is?
The article is about Mallory O'Brien and Laura Horvat, and it's looking at them as probably the 2 most likely female athletes to win the games next year if Tia-Clair Toomey retires. Obviously, they finished 2nd and 3rd this year, and their experiences at the games were quite different. Mal had a 6th in event 1. She was in 1st place after the 2nd event, and she was never in anything other than 1st or 2nd the rest of the weekend. That included wearing the leader's jersey for 4 consecutive events. Laura had a really slow start to the week. She got all the way down to 16th place at one point, and she was able to, have this, what people are calling this incredible charge on the weekend to ascend back into podium contention and take 3rd place at the CrossFit Games. But if you slide to the next slide over, well, Mike Halpin helped me with this. What we did was we inverted the events, and now you see Laura's in red here. She actually would have been in 1st place for 5 consecutive events, and like added 5 leader jersey. This is if you start with Jackie Pro and work the events in reverse order. And you would have had basically the total inverse storyline, where Laura would have been never outside of 4th place the entire competition. She would have been in 4th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or the entire time, still obviously ending up in 3rd. And Mal would have been all the way down in 12th after a few events, and then had that steady climb back. Kind of basically would have been an inverse situation for the 2 athletes. And we would have been talking about Mal's resiliency and her climb back up here to improve upon her placement from last year. And it would have been just another ho-hum pedestrian, podium finish for Laura with no real drama involved. So that's just to highlight that the order of the events really matters. And also just as a reminder to people when they're watching any competition, not to go too crazy just because someone had a great first event or a great day 1, but that, in general, the entire test needs to be considered before you want to make a conclusion about how the athlete's competition or weekend went.
I want those of you who are looking at your screen, look closely now. I'm going to explain this to you, and I'm going to make some small edits to these graphs. Can you go back a slide here? If you look at this graph, the blue line shows that Mal O'Brien, this is how the event actually played out, and you see Mal O'Brien. Basically, those are points, and because the blue line is on top of the red line, you see that she was ahead of Laura Horvat the entire competition. Now, what would have been nice is if we knew what next to each of those dots they wrote what place the athletes were in.
That's in the article. She's just trying to take the whole article that I wrote and make it into a digestible format for something on Instagram.
Hey, I don't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt me. And that was a joke, Brian. That was a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. And next slide. And this is when he told me this yesterday, I was tripping. This is so good. I'm just repeating what Brian said. This is if you play the events in reverse. Laura Horvat would have been wearing the 1st place jersey for 5 consecutive events. At the white one, it would have said Horvat on it. You could buy it like in a store or something now.
And it's one of those things that, Chad Schroeder keeps a record of all of the athletes who have ever worn the leader jersey and the number of times they've worn it. And that's something that Sean Woodland will sometimes represent in an accolade for an athlete, whatever. But the order of events has such a dramatic impact on that I don't really consider it to be that significant of a factor historically. Like I'm not, that's why I don't include something like leader jerseys worn at the CrossFit Games when I'm considering this list, because I think it's basically irrelevant. This is an exact representation of why that's irrelevant, because Mal accumulated 4 of those statistics this year. Laura accumulated 0. But if you flip the events inversely, Laura would have accumulated 5 and Mal would have got 0.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's
But at
really
the end
cool
of the
that you
day,
looked at that.
Mal beat Laura at the competition overall. That's what I'm looking at when I'm assessing them.
And it would have been a comeback story for Mal and not Laura.
Yeah. And this, and then, the rest of the article goes on to talk about what their competitions looked like this year compared to last year. And then it also just projects what's most likely for the two of them in terms of their potential to win next season.
Jeremy would like us to start the list. Can we go to number 30? It's Margot Alvarez, as Brian already leaked out at the beginning of the show. Brian, is there a slide of crumbs? We have a crumb slide?
Not a crumb slide. There were 2 athletes that were, I think there were 2 athletes that were bumped out here for the addition of Danielle Brandon and Gabrielle McGowan on the list. Those were Tennille Burline or Tennille Reed and Carrie Kepler.
Ones that it was hard, like they were close.
Mm-hmm.
Notable names eligible next season. Mal O'Brien's not eligible this season?
She's only been to the games twice as an individual.
Crazy, man. Crazy. Ariel Lowen, games twice. Ellie Turner twice from Australia. Eligible names who could jump up next year.
Emma McQuaid already has 4 appearances, but I didn't think that those 4 appearances weighed any better than the bottom of this list yet. Terry Helgedotter has 7 appearances. Emily Rolfe has 3. Jacqueline Dahlstrom has 3. Danny Spiegel has 4. Karen Freyova has 3. And then some of the older school athletes that are not on this list that I considered: Cassidy Lance McWhorter, Anna Tobias, Caroline Reason-Thibault. Interesting, actually, is Bethany Shadburn. Apparently she is making a run back at the games next year. She also could be added to that list there.
You have a good source for that?
Yep.
What's her camp? Who's she training with?
I don't know any of that, but Jason CF Media borrowed some of our conversation about Bethany from the top 100 women of all time, and then reached out to her to ask her what her plans were going forward. And she said that she's planning to attempt to qualify for the games again next year.
Wow.
Emily Bridgers, Danny Horan, Telena Fortunato, and Jennifer Assel, I think you pronounce it, are also athletes that I'd.
Oh, Bridgers. It's amazing that 30's not on the list. Caller, hi.
Hey, Sevan, how's it going, man?
Good.
All right. I have a quick question for Brian. Probably not really on par with what you guys are discussing right now, but Hiller obviously made a video about Tia potentially being on performance-enhancing drugs. And I know, Sevan, you don't like that idea, but let's say a couple months from now, Tia is drug tested and she actually pops. Does that remove her completely from the top 30 list, or is she still considered the most dominant of all time?
I don't really feel like entertaining this question.
I knew it. I thought about saving you, and I was like, fuck that. I want to see how Brian swims around with this one. Hey, dude, here's the question. Andrew, do you mind if I rephrase your question for Brian?
Please do.
Brian, what if someone on your list pops? What would that do to their
I would probably wait to see how CrossFit handles that. In the case of, I'm thinking about Sean Ramirez, Masters athlete. I think he won 3
And Andrew, he's using Sean because it's an actual event. Brian doesn't like the speculation. I think that basically he doesn't want to entertain dragging Tia's name through the mud at all, which I don't blame him.
Sean Ramirez, Masters athlete. I believe he won either 3 or 4 years in a row. I think it was 4 in the Masters 40 to 44 division. And then he failed a drug test in either his 4th or his 5th year competing. I don't think that they I don't think CrossFit's position was to go back and say we're stripping him of all these other titles because he passed a drug test in those years to receive his prize and his championship. And I just have a feeling that they would do the same thing in that regard, as they would say, like, yeah, she failed a drug test now, but we tested her every year for 7 years, 8 years, whatever it was, and she passed all those drug tests, and we can't like just assume that because she failed this one that she would have failed, that she was trying to cheat the system in all those years, no matter what the outside people want to say. And in that case, I'd say her resume still holds up.
Wow, you did get him to speculate. Good job, Andrew.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay. I respect that, not wanting to drag her name through the mud.
It's tough. It's like when you're talking about if we were going to do a list of greatest Masters athletes of all time, Sean's not obviously the best one. He is, his resume on its own, even taking out the year that he failed the drug test, is very, very good. I think he was 4 for 4 in wins. So it's like, is that a top 10 Masters athletes of all time? Probably, but it just doesn't feel that good to say that about someone after that happens to him. If let's say Ricky Garrard goes on to have 5 great years at the game, starting with this year, and he passes his drug test every year, it's for me it doesn't feel as bad, because it was 4 years before that he failed the drug test. He was punished for it. He came back, and now he's proven that he can still do it with the ability to pass the drug tests. That feels better than the other way around, I think. Tough conversation. Tough question.
I'm confused why anyone ever thought Bethany wasn't going to compete next year. She's been saying all along that she was focusing on her health so she can make another run. She can say all she wants. If you can't see why someone's confused, she hasn't been there in 2 years.
And, when it comes to, there's certain injuries that you just never know. Back injury is tough. Like it's one of those things. I have full confidence that people can recover from that. But like Emma Carey's in the same situation. She had this back injury at 17 years old. It's not that encouraging. So until either one of them comes back and shows me that they can compete again at the level that they were, I'm just a little hesitant to.
How far do you think someone?
Guarantee.
How far do you think someone has to get before you say that they competed
in the season?
Yeah, like let's say you don't make it out of the Open, you're like, I'm going to compete. I'm competing in the CrossFit Games this year, and you don't make it past the Open. Did you compete in the CrossFit Games?
In the CrossFit Games season?
Yeah.
And you didn't make it out of the Open?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I would say I signed up for the CrossFit Games season and competed until I was eliminated from the competition last year, and it was after the Open.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Once you've been to the games, if you don't make it, I don't know, at least to the last chance qualifier, I don't know. I don't know if I give you a you competed. Fucked around. Okay, number 30. Brian, going back to the crumb list, I didn't understand the difference really between those two lists. The top list is people who just aren't eligible yet, and the bottom people are people like
they are eligible, but I didn't think that the current criteria that they have accumulated over their career warranted a top 30 placement.
But these people are so close to going on the list that basically if they just make it to the games one more time, regardless of their positioning, there's a good chance they might pop up.
I don't know. Like Turi Helgadottir is a great example. It's pretty tough. Like these are her event finishes at the CrossFit Games: 35th, 28th, 22nd, 19th, 18th, 13th, 9th.
For 2022?
Those are her finishes in her career in her 7 appearances at the game. Sorry, I probably misspoke there. So she's got one top 10 finish. It was 9th place. It was in 2019. And it was the only person who made the top 10 that she beat was Anna Fragkow, who failed the drug test, which is why she beat her. So she got last place amongst the people who made the top 10. We've gone over the list from 2019 before of the people who just got cut at the very end. Daniel Brandon, Annie Thorsdottir, Carolyn Prevost, Alessandra Percelli, Laura Horvath, Brooke Wells, Caroline Reason-Tebro, Sam Briggs, Emily Rolfe, Sarah Sigmundsdottir, and Emma McQuaid. Those athletes, I think that at least 5 and possibly 8 of them would have beaten her over the course of the weekend if they'd been able to continue in the competition. So that 9th place finish, this is a good example where the stats don't always tell a story. I'm not very impressed by that 9th place finish. I'm far more impressed by Turi's 13th place finish last year at the CrossFit Games, and I would consider that to be her best ever CrossFit Games season. But if you look on this list, at the last people that are on the list, which is obviously who I'm comparing her with, Then you see people like Margot Alvarez and Stacy Tovar. And the resumes are similar. They're similar to that. And I'm just, you see like Stacy's got an 11th and a 12th and a 14th. Those with like 3 comparable finishes to Turi's best finish. I guess I could see. I mean, she is probably the one that was the next one on the list. So
Turi's the one that didn't make it off the rower in the final event this year, right?
One of the 2, I believe. Yeah.
It's kind of she's pretty amazing, right? She's one of those outliers that just keeps giving.
Turi's incredible, and I think underappreciated by almost everyone, and including her own country. I often remind people that she's got. I mean, look at the other women from Iceland. Obviously, Annie has 11 appearances, Katrin has 9, Sarah has 7, and Turi has 7. So that's pretty good company in terms of appearances. But obviously, her appearances at the games haven't been at the same caliber as those others, and so she doesn't get the same recognition. She's been doing it a long time. I mean, if you ever been around her, she's pretty tiny, and it's impressive how much she can lift and how well she can do and continue to compete over a long period of time. But it's a hard list to get on.
Stacy Tovar pioneered the booty shorts. I don't think that that's true.
Oh, really? That was the only reason I included it on the list, so I'll probably just take her off it now.
You know who pioneered those? Anyone want to take a stab at it? Was a young lady who's now a police officer named Libby DiBiase. And if you type in her name, you will see those. I appreciate I think Stacy took them maybe to the next level. But it was, I think Libby showed up to the 2008 games wearing those, or 2009 games, and everyone was like, what the fuck?
6th place, 2009. Or 2008, excuse me. She also competed in 2009. I'm not sure which year she wore the booty shorts.
Libby, yeah. And if you look at the picture, will just, they were red ones. Okay, yeah, it's that picture with her in the white shirt. And yeah, there she is. And she was I want to say she was a track star at like Omaha or Nebraska, or she's a cop now. That's a cool lady too. A cop and a mom. Super cool. She has a kid with Joe Westerland from the L1 seminar team. Cool couple. I thought it was you, Sevan. No, it was not me. I did wear a lot of sleeveless shirts then, but no booty shorts. Okay. I like that. I like those. I need to see the rest of the list. Let's go. Let's 37 minutes in. Enough of this dilly dallying, Sevan. Someone already paid us $5. Jeremy Eat World paid us $5 to get moving. Okay. One more question before we get to the list. Number 1 is Tia Toomey. Do you think, Brian, in your lifetime you'll see someone take her off that number 1 spot?
In my lifetime?
Yeah. Assuming you're going to live another 50 years.
That is such a hard question. It'll be tough. It would be tough.
No, Mal O'Brien, Kerstetter.
I mean, the thing is, there's obviously some very good women coming right now, but to do it, let's just say Mal's going to do it. She's going to have to beat Laura continuously. She's going to have to beat Gabby, Haley, Emma Lawson, Emma Carey, Olivia Kerser, like Haley. There's a lot of challengers that are right there that that's tough to beat. And
I think it's going to happen. Here's why. We had Froning, then we had Fraser, now we have Medeiros, and I think that the women are just a couple champions behind. We have Toomey, and I think she knows. I think that's why she's coming back too. I think she knows.
I gotta get another one. I gotta make it that much harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It'll be tough. Her resume is very, very impressive. But I don't think it's impossible. I think we learned that after Rich, or after Matt, really. Why
Michelle Kinney, least amount of appearances, but ahead of Christy Phillips, Elizabeth Akinwale, Stacy Tovar, and Margot Alvarez? What do you see that makes Kinney above these other 4 women?
just pretty consistent during the time that she competed. Not at it's not like a super flashy resume. It's not a name that I think a lot of people often think about, but 4-year run, pretty good. And I think that pretty much from like, where are they on this list? Probably from like Michelle Letendre and down, so 23 and down. Those are just going to disappear from the list over the next 3 years, probably 3 to 5 years.
I think that you have to put so much weight on appearances. 8 appearances is insane.
Yeah.
All right. Next slide. I think Kinney is in the wrong spot, and I don't think you did a good job of defending her position.
Okay.
All right. Fine. Number 21, Danielle Brandon. I didn't even know Danielle Brandon was in the 2019 games until just now when you said it.
Well, she's technically listed as 10th, but she was 11th. A frag cow was removed from the list after failing a drug test. So pretty unfortunate for Danielle. She missed by one place. And there was obviously an athlete ahead of her who took a spot that was doing it against the rules. Otherwise, she probably would have gotten some of the fame and notoriety and popularity that she has now a year or two earlier.
It's and she didn't really have any of that popularity in 2019, did she?
No, for a large part, she was an unknown that year. It was her first year. It was a massive field, and basically until you got down to the top 10, there wasn't a lot of drama. Additionally, the person who was, I think, maybe 1 point and one place behind her who also got cut was Annie Thorsdottir, and that was a much bigger deal than the unknown Danielle Brandon.
Back in the era when I paid attention to the games, China Cho and Letendre were the big names. Those were big names. They stepped on
Valenzuela too.
She even has an event win. Was that a lifting event?
Where are you looking?
Lindsay Valenzuela's.
I don't think she has an event win.
Oh, she did. Oh no, she doesn't. Sorry. Okay, I confused it with podium. Yeah, Michelle Letendre, 2 event wins. Are you sure Danielle should be 21 already?
Yeah, Michelle Letendre won one of the most famous events in CrossFit Games history that nobody remembers that she won it, because they only remember Rich and Josh doing a battle on push-pull, but she won that for the women, and she also won the pool event with the swimming and the bar muscle-ups the year before. Am I sure they should be number 21 and 22 on the list? Also is number 20 on the list is Amanda Barnhart. I kind of just grouped Barnhart, Brandon, and Magawa together here. They have very similar resumes. Amanda has 1 extra year than the other 2. Yeah, I'm okay with them being here. 5, 4, and 4 appearances in this era stacks up, I think, pretty well against 6, 4, and 6 from Letendre, Valenzuela, and Cho. And they've all been able to get at least a couple finishes inside the top 10 already. Yeah, I think it's an okay spot for them to be. I think that over the next couple of years, Amanda, Danielle, and Gabrielle will separate a little bit. They won't stay grouped on this list. I think that probably 1 or 2 of them will emerge and surpass the other one. And we'll see how high up they can move.
Was this list harder than the men's list?
Yep.
And how come?
Two main reasons. In general, the resumes are better for all of these women than they were. Like, there were like some kind of considerable cutoffs. I also think, and it was just to the point that one of the comments I think had earlier about Kristen Clever, I feel like it's a little bit harder to assess the change in eras. Like, it does feel like the women now are considerably better than the women then, but I'm just not sure, because you still have these women, like Turi Helgadottir or Annie Thorsdottir or even Sam Briggs, who were able to straddle those eras and continue to be really good and relevant. There's a lot of different reasons why people stop competing. And in the women's case, sometimes that's to start a family or if they have kids. And then it's not that they couldn't have continued to do what Annie and Sam did. It's just that they chose to go a different direction with their life. So someone like Michelle Kenny, who has a small amount of appearances, Kristen Clever has a small amount of appearances. What if they had tried to continue to compete for 8 or 10 years?
I think Kenny did try. I think that the field out ran away from her. I could be wrong.
Oh, let's find out.
So, Brian, is there a delineation? Is there a strong line? If you said, I think Jamal wrote it in the comments a while back, you are not trying to compare the old athletes to the new athletes, but what you're doing is comparing the athletes relative to the field when they competed. Is that fair to say? Or no?
Yes and no. I don't know if Michelle continued to try, by the way. The last year that she has a regionals appearance was also the last year she made the games. And the last year she made the games it was a 12th place finish, and it wasn't her worst finish. So it wasn't like she was tapering off or falling off there. So I don't know why she stopped competing, but during the
What year was that?
2014.
Okay. God, I can't believe that's 8 years ago. I mean, most people probably never even heard of her, right?
Yeah, and the game's website has an incomplete record of her competition history.
That's weird.
Now it happens. It happens for a couple different reasons, but she's not the only one. I think they're working on it, but it's taking a long time.
I was being facetious.
Do
we know if since I know I asked you this yesterday, has anything changed? Is Tia competing?
She'll be competing at the Down Under CrossFit Championship. Oh, that's all we know. I did hear about that, by the way, from Rob Forte, who's one of the part owners of that competition now. And he says that one of the other owners has a great relationship and always has with Tia and Shane. And that's why they're going to have their whole contingency of proven athletes at the competition.
Oh.
So that's nice of Rob.
That was nice of Rob. I'll probably get in trouble for sharing that with you.
I don't think so.
Okay, next slide. And this is the one with Danielle Brandon. Okay. So at 21 was Danielle Brandon. Number 20, Amanda Barnhart. Number 19, the amazing Valerie Voberl. For those of you who don't know, she was also one of the athletes in the 2009 games when Jason Kalipa passed out on the run and got up and finished that event. I think that was event number 1. Valerie also passed out as she crossed the finish line. She actually did a somersault as she crossed the finish line, and I think that was the end of her day. She turned white. It was pretty crazy. And then after that, she came back and she was basically a powerhouse. She was one of those athletes. I think the folklore around her is that she only trained once a day. She had a kid. When you would ask her what music,
she's a teacher.
That sounds right. When you'd ask her what kind of music she would listen to when she worked out, it would be like shit like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It'd be like kids' music.
She's actually a good example of what I was talking about. So she competed in 2010. She was immediately on the podium that year behind Chris Clever and Annie Thorsdottir, who had probably the best battle between two athletes at the top of the podium ever. They were like first and second on nearly every event. She wasn't in the field the next year. She came back in 2012 and took 5th, 2013 3rd, 2014 5th. Then she had 2 years of not being at the games and came back in 2017. So, it's a 7-year stretch from her first to last games appearance, and she was only able to finish 32nd there. So considerably worse than the other 4 years. And that is a data point that, shows, possibly the difficulty of continuing to extend a career into a new era, which I would consider 2017 to be a new era for the CrossFit Games, going to Madison, different calibers of athletes, younger, fitter, training longer in the sport, in the field.
Going back, by the way, she was kind of like the Ariel Lowen of her day. She was kind of like the first one, high profile mom to be like, hey.
Only better. 4 top 5 finishes over 5 years. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, she was impressive.
And
going back
to
Kristen,
the update show used to call her a Toyota Corolla. You don't really think very highly of it, but it's just extremely reliable over time.
Damn. And for those of you who are wondering how good Kristen Clever is, I mean, just think about it. Annie's still in the game kicking ass, and her nemesis back in the day was Clever, and it was close. By the way, I saw Kristen Clever recently at a street parking event, and she looks fitter now than she did back then. Now, I'm not saying she is fitter,
I saw her at the Granite Games. Yeah, she looks great, I think.
Yeah, she looks amazing. Alessandra Pacelli, 8, very, very dominant female CrossFit athlete. I don't think she ever made it to the podium, did she? Nope. A lot of high hopes for her. Came out of the Bay Area in California, Diablo CrossFit athlete. Kind of surprised to see her so low on this list.
Yeah, well, she had some, ups and downs in her career. She had a 4th place finish. She was really close to making the podium in 2013. That year was Briggs, Valenzuela, and Voberl. But she also had, her next best finishes were 9th, 10th, 14th, and she had some lower ones. So longevity is really playing in her favor here over excellent performances. And that's where it's really tough. You look at the resume of Voberl and you look at the resume of Pacelli, and I could very easily justify flipping them and saying that Val was more impressive than Alessandra over her career. It's those are the tough calls, and that's what I was pretty much dealing with throughout the entire creation of this list. I think that Alessandra is kind of, for people who were around back then, she's well known and remembered for some specific things, including kind of the creation of that kipping legless rope climb technique that a lot of women are still using in competition today. And yeah, she was a part of that California crew that was sort of at the foundation of women, like the top tier of women, along with Rebecca Voigt, Val Voberl, and Lindsay Valenzuela at the early onset of the sport for women.
In 17th, Jamie Simmons, formerly known as Jamie Green. I wonder what you're going to think of this, Brian. She is she's Bethany Shadburn, but the generation before. She's Chandler Smith. She's one of these athletes that popped up onto the scene and got a shitload of attention, was a powerhouse, an insane physique. But it didn't happen.
Well,
and Jason Hopper might be the next version of that, although I don't think so. I mean, we're seeing
just
Jason
to put in
Klein.
perspective.
Yeah,
Bethany Shadburn, 4 appearances at the games, finishes of 22nd, 16th, 8th, and 20th. Jamie Simmons, 4 appearances at the games, finishes of 8th, 11th, 3rd, and 12th. Significantly better.
Right. But sort of the generation before, right? She's 5 years. She's like came on the scene. What was Jamie Simmons' first games appearance versus Bethany Shadburn's? I'm guessing it's 5 years.
2000. Before. Oh, Jamie Simmons. Oh, I'm sorry, because she has different names.
But you kind of see the comparison I'm drawing here. It's not a dig at those people. I know I presented it like it's a dig. It really isn't. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of great competition, but these are all 3 people with insane physiques came on and like a lot of wow factor.
Not really that different. But I think that both of their first years were the same in 2017.
Oh, okay. I thought Jamie had been around.
Both came in 2017. Jamie beat her in 2017. Jamie beat her in 2018. Jamie beat her in 2019, and she beat her in 2020. So clearly a tier above Bethany Shadburn.
Was Jamie Simmons a different? Was she a professional athlete who pivoted?
I'm not sure. The year before she competed at the games for the first time, she won the Open, and they took 3rd place with the team across at Yas in 2016. I don't know what her competition history was before then in CrossFit or otherwise.
All right. I feel like
it doesn't really say. Oh, rugby player, gymnast and rugby player, but I don't know at what level.
Right. I have Keelan Green coming on today at 10 o'clock.
Keelan Henry.
What'd I say? Keelan Green.
Yeah.
No, he did not take Jamie's old name. You're right, Keelan Henry. And I was doing some research on him yesterday. That guy is yoked.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. He has an incredible physique. You would really like his body, I think.
Yeah, his arms are absolutely nuts. Who had the other crazy arms at the games? Triceps. Carone, right? Carone's arms are. He's like one of those guys with bigger triceps than biceps.
Okay.
All right. Okay, back to the list. Here we go. Have we seen? And Bethany Shadburn's not on this list?
No.
Because even though she has the same amount of appearances as Jamie Simmons, she
For example, Bethany Shadburn has the same number of appearances as Michelle Kenny, but her average finish over those years was 5 places worse. And Bethany did it later on or more recently, which I would say is, it's better to do it more recently, but I still just don't think that her resume stacks up well enough to get on the list.
Okay, fair. Rebecca Voigt, 10 appearances. This is the most appearances of anyone in the history of individual competition, or no?
No. Tied for third. Ben Smith and Annie Thorzetter have 11 each.
Wow.
Tied for third with Cara Saunders. Now, Rebecca also has a couple Masters appearances to her credit, but 10 in the individual women's field.
I'd get those couple Masters appearances. I smell bacon. Those couple Masters appearances must be equivalent to one of Ben's, because Ben was invited. That one doesn't really count. Who else is it? Ben. So Annie has 11.
Yeah.
So Annie's the winner.
Yeah.
Was Becca Voigt the first person to hit 10?
I think so.
I give her credit for that. That's pretty cool.
I think we were there for that, actually.
Her average finish, is that the lowest average finish of anyone on the list, the top 30 list? No.
Yeah, her last one was 2018, and we were there for it when she qualified in Southern California down there.
And then a few months later, my career took a fucking dismal turn.
The only people with lower average finish on the list are the last 2 people on the list, Stacy Tovar and Margot Alvarez.
Okay, and so that's so number 29 and 30 are the only 2 people who have a lower average finish than Rebecca Voigt. Mm-hmm. Which is fair. She's been to the games 10 times. Was her career basically just like was it just a curve, just up and then down? I mean, is it pretty...
Rebecca Voigt?
Yeah. Is it pretty obvious as she got to the end that shit was falling apart?
I mean...
What place did she get her 10th year?
27th.
Okay.
3 years before that, she got 31st. That was 2015. 24th the year before that. So from 2013 to 2014, she definitely... lost some ground. In the years before that, she was 11th, 10th, 3rd, 7th. She had an off year, 20th in 2019. Her first year in 2008, she took 7th also. So, but I mean, Rebecca Voigt is, I think, is probably, if you want to be healthy over a long period of time, she's a great role model to have. Healthy and fit over a long period of time. She has found a way. I think a lot of actually the athletes on this list, the old school athletes have done this. I think Stacy Tovar's managed to do it, Margot Alvarez, to leverage their elite fitness into elite health, where they're still training and able to compete if they want to at a super high level, but that their lifestyle is a reflection of what the CrossFit methodology was intended to be, which in many cases, the elite CrossFit athlete's lifestyle is not necessarily that.
How's she done in Masters? Has she won any Masters titles?
Yeah. I don't want to get this wrong.
It's okay. No one will know.
They will know. Plus I respect Rebecca a lot and don't want to.
This is passion fruit, by the way. I have thousands of these all over my property right now. $3.99 a pop at Whole Foods, and yet I live in the abundance lifestyle. Thousands of them.
She has been third, second, and third. So she hasn't won any, but she's been 4 times on the podium in the Masters division, in addition to 10 individual CrossFit Games appearances.
Do you know who's winning that? Who's keeping her off the podium? Who's keeping her off first place? Is it a former
Sam Briggs 1 year? It's like pretty good. Let's check this year.
That's nuts.
Like when the women that are beating her are she didn't compete this year, it was last year. The women that are beating her are mostly recognizable. Oh my gosh. I guess it's been a while.
Wait, are you telling me Sam Briggs competed Masters and then came back to individual?
2019, Anna Tobias and Carlene Matthews beat her.
Okay. Wow, Carlene Matthews. Wow.
And Sam Briggs did compete 2018. She actually lost to Anna Tobias that year as well. That year, Rebecca competed as an individual. 2017, Stephanie Waugh and Joey Kimden beat her.
Joey's a girl.
Yeah, she is so impressive. If you don't know who she is,
Joey Kimden.
yeah.
I wonder if it's who I'm
She
thinking.
was even in like the sanctional years in her 40s. She was competing in some elite open fields. Because she was in the 40 to 44 this
Hey,
year.
are you telling me Sam Briggs went masters and then came back and competed as an individual?
Yeah. So did
Has
Rebecca.
anyone else ever done that? That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, Rebecca. This year, I forgot she aged up.
Wait, you're saying Rebecca Voigt also competed as a masters and then came back and competed as an individual at the games? Wow.
2017 to 2018.
Are they the only two
Probably.
athletes who've ever done that?
Probably, but I think Jason Smith really wants to do it this next year. He wants to prove me wrong. Kelly Friel and Jen Ryan beat her this year. They are both phenomenal masters athletes. Both Jen and Rebecca and Kelly, I think, actually all qualified for semifinals as individuals in the 40 to 44 division. They still qualified for semifinals. That's why, that's a great example of why the women's stats are inflated relative to the men's. There's no men in the 40 to 44 division that have a chance of qualifying for semifinals with how many people are competing. But in the women's field, you can extend that fitness for a long time and still be competitive. And then last year, she also lost to Kelly Friel, took second that year.
I can't believe Briggs and Becca did that. That's nuts.
That was the year. I think Briggs had an injury that year that prevented her from competing in the individuals regionals, but she was able to do the Masters online qualifier, or maybe the other way around. She had done the qualifier, then she got an injury and she was unable to do the regionals, but she had already qualified as a master, so she was able to go Masters, and she was able to recover and get second place in the Masters division. And then, it wasn't that she wasn't good enough that year to make it. She just had got an injury that prevented her from doing regionals. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that.
Don't you remember Joey Heatherton, Sevan? I don't remember who that is. I have no idea. Rich Froning Jr. will compete next year in Masters, right? I doubt it. Can I see number 15? Well, not exactly who I thought. Not exactly who I thought, but
I think he said that because it's another woman named Joey.
Oh, gotcha. Do you think Sam Briggs repeats in 2014? If not for the handstand walking event,
100%.
Really?
No questions asked. I mean,
she would have won the games again
for sure. I think for sure. That year's the year that Camille won. That Cara Saunders was right in the mix with Camille. It would have been. I think that Cara probably would have beat her, but it would have been close. And I think that Sam would have beat them both if she had been able to be there.
Damn, great question, David. Shit, I give you question of the show. Wow.
And even though there are some good and recognizable names on this list, I think it's the weakest games field for the women since moving to Carson, California. The top 10 that year. There was for years after that, there were nobody from this top 10 was able to get back inside the top 10 until Annie Thorsdottir did it.
What's the number of the 30 athletes on this list? How many of them are active?
Active right now? Okay, well, I guess we'll count Tia. So 1, 2, 3.
I guess anyone who competed last year.
Sam Briggs not active, so 5, 6. Carrie Pierce is retired. 7, 8, 9. I don't know if I should count Jamie Simmons or not. We will. 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 of the 30.
13 of the 30. Okay. That's pretty good.
That's counting Tia and Jamie Simmons.
And do you know the average years that these women have competed on this list by any chance?
What do you mean? The average number of times they've qualified for the games? Or the average number of years they competed over their career?
Oh, let's say the first one. How many times they've competed in the games? The average
6.5.
Okay, and in CrossFit's about 16 years old, 17 years old. Okay,
let's actually do it. Let's find out what that is for the men. For the men in the top 30, it's average of 6.2. It's a little less.
So there is a bias for whatever reason. Maybe it's legitimate. Maybe bias isn't the right word, but there is a if you're active, the people who are competing now are dominating this list. Average.
Well, there's less
average,
than half of them.
I know, but the sport's been around 16 years with an average years of competing at 6.5 years. And so if 13 of the 30 are on there, it's more than a third. I don't know. My quick napkin math. Camille, number 15. That is the lowest. Is that the lowest of anyone's on the list that won the CrossFit Games?
That's also competed more than twice. Yes. Because
Why?
the first three champions are not on the list. Jolie, Katie, and Tanya didn't make the list.
Okay. So of anyone who's on the list, that's the lowest placement of a champion.
Yeah, and that's actually, yeah. Jolie did compete 3 times, and she had 3 top 10 finishes. So it's, I was interested, and you didn't bring her up, and neither did Barbell Spin Guy, and neither did anyone else. Someone wanted to ask about Katie Mather, who has the worst resume of the 3 champions from the Carson era.
Wait, what didn't I bring up? We talked about Katie in the beginning, didn't we?
Yeah, because Barbell Spin Guy mentioned her in the comments, and I mentioned that Tanya Wagner had a better resume, and I thought that you might ask about Jolie Gentry, but you didn't. Jolie also has a better resume than Katie Mather.
Jolie competed in 3 games, 7, 8, and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, 1st, 5th, and 7th. Could make an argument that she could squeak into a bottom spot on this list.
She wasn't even a crumb. Camille, 15. Julie Fouché, 14. Christy Arama O'Connell, 13. Haley Adams, Brooke Wells. 8 appearances by Brooke Wells. Wow.
I think she's only 27 years old.
Brooke?
Yeah. And when you think about, the fact that, athletes like Kristen Holt and Annie Thorzad are still qualifying and doing very well into their 32, 33, 34, 35. Carrie Pierce, same thing. Cara Saunders, same thing. And if she continues to do that, she could string together, 14 or 15 games appearances. That's it just depends how long these athletes can keep up this level of competitive excellence. That's what someone was saying about Mal O'Brien when you asked that question earlier, if anyone could ever, match or pass by what Tia can do. Like it's not just making the games. It's not just doing well at the games. Like you also have to figure out a way to keep your body healthy enough, injury-free enough, and your mind motivated enough to want to commit to doing that year after year after year.
Are all of Becca Voigt's 10 appearances consecutive?
No. You should know that since we already addressed the fact that she went masters and then came back to the individual field.
Good point. Are Brooke Wells' 8 consecutive?
I think so.
Who has the most consecutive?
Now you're asking. This is a question that Noah Olson was asking about last week, because it's technically the most consecutive are Ben Smith with 11. However, he didn't qualify for all 11 of those. He 2009, you could just show up. 2019, he was invited. So Ben had 9 consecutive qualifications. Also, Noah Olson, BKG, and Cole Sager currently have 9 consecutive qualifications. All 3 of them could potentially have 10 consecutive qualifications next year, which, although it wouldn't match Ben's 11 appearances, would eclipse his 9 straight qualifications. On the women's side, there's a lot of athletes that are in this kind of vicinity. Brooke Wells being one of them. She has qualified for 8 consecutive games since 2018. Tia Claire Toomey, same thing. And I think some of the Katrin lost her streak this year. Cara Saunders' streak was interrupted. Sam Briggs' streak was interrupted. I think Holta had 8 in a row, but then she retired. And then Voigts were interrupted. So in terms of consecutive games appearances for the women, or qualifications in this case, because none of these women were invited or just could show up and do it. It's Tia and Brooke right now. But if Tia retires, Brooke could take the edge in that regard.
Tia's not retiring.
Well, there's, it's an unknown. So we'll just talk about it for what it is.
What do you know? Is there stuff you know that you're not saying?
I know that she told everyone she was retiring on the last day of the games, and then she didn't retire.
She did not. That is not accurate, Brian.
What's not accurate?
I don't think she was the one doing the telling, right? Her people, her camp was doing the telling.
The people who are closest to her communicated to the people that needed to know.
Yes.
For their calls and their award ceremony presentation, the layout of that, the format of that.
Yes.
That was her intention, and of how she was going to do it. And then she didn't do it. And I've talked about how this, how I feel about this. So I don't think we need to talk about it again.
I like talking about it. Look at this. Look at this. Jason Klepa just texted me. I don't normally read text, but I'm going to read this one. I saw some good feedback on YouTube from our podcast with Nicky Rod. Oh, yes. Have to see that interview I did with Jacob Rodriguez if you're an athlete. What a cool kid. If you have kids, you should make your kids watch the last half an hour of that interview. I don't know how much I swear in it, but he's never drank. He's never smoked weed. Doesn't do any drugs. He comes out and says it's fucking crazy the amount of steroids in jiu-jitsu. He does not do any drugs. He was so fucking cool. Sevan is poking the beast. Brian, I think you're the beast, Brian. Do you take offense to that? He's referring to you as the beast. Great question, Stephen Flores. Travis Mayers, how many consecutive appearances does he have, Brian? Thank you, Stephen.
Well, he missed a year.
Son of a bitch. He was pregnant?
No. That was the year I think he just missed by one spot at regionals that year.
Does demo team count? It does not. I'm speaking for Brian on that while he looks through stuff. I'll answer any questions for Brian while he's doing the research. Oh, Brad Williams, Travis missed 2 years. No shit.
He missed 2013 and 2015. Missed. His games profile is also incomplete. But he did miss those 2 years.
I'm very happy.
He missed 2018. That was the bench press year. That's the year I was thinking of.
Are you excited? You don't want Tia to retire though, right?
This is one of those. Goes back to like the debate that we had with John Young about the parity versus the dominance. Like I have always been in sports a fan of records and streaks and elite level performance. And so having Tia in the field, you're going to just continue to establish that bar for the question that you're asking of what is achievable, what is doable, what is sustainable in terms of the peak performance and excellence. And then that mark will be higher and higher, for history to chase down. But it's a little boring having her in the field at this point. There is the only people who are picking anyone other than Tia to win the games they don't actually believe that's going to happen. They're just doing it to have a conversation. It's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point that if she competes healthy, she's going to win. And that's what we were talking about. Is that a good thing for the sport? Like, does that draw up the drama? If you take Tia out of the equation, I think at the very least, there's two women that are easily, immediately favorites to win the games. If Annie comes back and competes, she does it rogue. She could be in that conversation.
But if she leaves, the opportunity to beat her is gone.
I know that that's a big deal for you. And it's one of those, it's one of those things in sports. Like, sometimes people are like, I'm going to go out on top and I'm feeling like this is I've pushed my body as far as I can and for as long as I want to, and I was able to do that and still win. But, I'm done. And I think that to some degree, that's what Rich did with the individual. He didn't, it wasn't his body, but it was more of just the mind and commitment. At least that's what he said. And the same thing for Fraser, where he's like, for those that don't know, I have poured every ounce of my preparation year after year after year into this because I never wanted to have that 2015 feeling again. And that just was, I think for Fraser and the level of commitment and seriousness that he had to that, that was a draining on him. And he didn't, even after 2020, I think he was done wanting to do that. But, some people around him said, I think you should go for one more. I think you'll feel better about that, which he did. And then he was finally like, I did one more. You guys told me to, but I mean, I've had enough.
And that was his best year.
2021.
Whatever his last year was, right?
You could say that it was the best year. Yeah.
Okay. Back to the list. You don't want Tia to compete is what I heard. That's what I heard, how I heard you answer that.
I don't mind her in the field. It just, it dramatically changes the conversation, right? Because if she's in the field, then it's like, yep, she's clearly the person to beat. It's the expectation for someone to do it is extremely low. If she's out of the field, some could make an argument that there's up to 6 women that have a chance to win and maybe up to 10 women that have a chance to podium. And now that parity in the sport might, that could drive a lot of interest as well.
Parity spelled with an I, not with an O, as we learned on that show. Top 10s, what does that mean? And they're all tied at 4. Brooke, Haley, Christy. Uh-oh.
Top 10s?
You see how it says top 10s? And they're all blue, that number 4. What does that mean? What's top 10s? Thank you.
Oh, well, Michael chose to highlight the best person per page in each category. In this case, all of those athletes have the exact same number of top 10 finishes at the games over their career, which is 4. So we highlighted all of them.
Brooke has never had more than 4 top 10 finishes in the 8 years.
Brooke's event finishes by year 16th, 6th, 14th, 8th, 16th, 5th.
Oh.
Bouncing back and forth.
Okay. I see what I was thinking of event. I keep confusing that. I was thinking about events that's at the end of the week.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next page, please, Mr. Beaver. Number 6 of all time. Well, let's start at number 10. Number 10 of all time, the greatest American. Is it fair to call her the greatest American who ever competed in the?
I mean, Kristen Clever's right there at 9, also American. I think that these, in my opinion, these are the 2 best, and you could make an argument either way. And I've chosen to give Kristen the nod here over Carrie, but it's in my opinion, it's no slight at Carrie.
Sarah Sigmund's daughter, Kristen Holta, and Laura Horvat at 6. The only person on this second page that's going towards the left is Laura Horvat, and the other 4 are going that way.
Well, yeah, you look at just right behind them. You have Brooke Wells, Haley Adams, Christy Aramo. Christy's probably getting towards the end of her career, but like we said, Brooke could potentially have 6 or 7 more years. Haley could potentially have 10 to 12 more years, and obviously, if either one of them does that, they'll move past these people.
What does this mean? I'm leaking.
I'm not going to speculate on that.
Okay, I know it would be weird to speculate on it. Mr. Serrano, 2020 was Fraser's last year.
What?
Huh? I think you're right. Thank you for the correction. 8 appearances by Kristen Holta, not consecutive.
8 appearances by Kristen Holta, I think, were consecutive.
Okay.
They were consecutive, but then she retired.
All right. Top 10 finish. Wow. Man, she was good. Is she the least? Does she have the least notoriety of any great CrossFit athlete?
Who?
Kristen Holta.
You tell me. I mean, do you think she has more notoriety than Carrie Pierce?
No.
Chris Clever?
Not relative to the day.
Laura Horvat?
No, definitely not. I just don't hear Kristen Holta's name enough relative to her success. I mean, she's a powerhouse.
Yeah. Incredible.
She was on the podium in 2019?
Second place.
To who? Tia. Shit. Who took 3rd?
Jamie Simmons.
Crazy. I don't even remember that year. Oh, it's because I was sitting on a couch crying because I wasn't
this
doing
is
the behind the
a
scenes.
pretty. I mean, I know that it's a pretty impressive. her stretch from 2017 to 2001 to me is very, very impressive.
2021.
17th to 21. 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. That 5-year stretch. She in 17 and 18, I consider those to be very strong women's fields historically. She finished 7th both years. The athletes that beat her, Tia twice, Cara twice, Annie twice, Katrin twice, Carrie once, and Tennille Reed, Berline once.
Yeah.
Those are good years. Athletes.
What happened to her? What happened to Tennille?
I think she got married and had a kid.
Oh.
And that's what happens to women. Like we talked about, some of them choose to do that. Athletes that she beat in those years, Brooke Wells, Jamie Green, or Simmons, Sam Briggs, Christy Aramo, Carrie Pierce, Jamie again, Pacelli, Berline, Cassidy Lance McMortar, Camille, Christy Aramo, Brooke Wells, Pacelli, Barnhart, like pretty good athletes that she's beating. So that's what I'm saying. That's a pretty good, those were pretty good years. She was taking 7th. 2019 and 20, everyone knows how I feel about that. She got 2nd place in 2019. It's her best finish. The whatever.
Oh, look at Daniel saying it's because she went to OPEX and all her shit got good. Is that really what happened? Oh.
Holta is missed the 2020 final spot, took 6th that year, comes back to the full games field in 2021 and takes 4th. And the fact that she was able to come back and in a games field that was now, she lost to Tia, Laura, and Annie that year, which is nothing wrong with that. She beats Haley, Gabby, Mal, Christy, Amanda, Katrin, Danielle, Brandon, Emma McQuaid, Turi. I mean, this was also obviously a very competitive field, and she's able to, at the tail end of her career, which ends up being her last year, take 4th anyway. So she, to me, is an incredible resume. Those 5 years are very impressive. Even in the years before that, she enters into the scene 2014 with a 16th, 17th, and 13th or 12th place finish, excuse me. There's just not a lot. There's not a lot not to like about Kristen Holta's career overall, which is why she's so high on this list.
From a small country called Norway. Is this true, Caleb? I will never. Did Trish introduce the word Badussi on this show? Is that true?
Yeah,
Trish gets credit.
I think so.
Wow, Trish. Wow, it's amazing the history that people remember. Could I see that? Could I see that list again? And she's toast, right? Is she going teams? Is Holta going teams?
She retired.
She like done.
She's not competing anymore. Instead, she's coaching, and she's actually the athletes that she's coaching and the Krieger training plan that she's built up there in Oslo, CrossFit Oslo, is incredibly impressive. Matilda Garns, who qualified for the games, came through here. Seher Kaya, who qualified for the games out of Asia but lives in Norway, she came through there. This is, the CrossFit Oslo team. Helena Richter, Ingrid, Ivan, Nicola Bieladel, all these guys, like this is they're creating kind of what I would consider the version of the Kalashnikov team in Russia or the Mayhem in the United States, or maybe what Underdogs is hoping to do in the US, but for Norway, where the best collection of athletes are all going there, and they have teams that are doing well and young individuals that are doing well. And I think Kristen is in large part responsible for that and at the forefront of that movement. So even though it's not relevant for this list, in a lot of the ways that people want to, credit Rich, rightfully so, for what he's created outside of himself, for, in the Mayhem Empire there, I feel like Kristen is doing some of that in Norway for the CrossFit, for the
Okay. Don't be comparing Kristen to Rich. Don't get fucking ahead of yourself yet.
There have to be these leaders in their countries that are moving things forward. That's the argument for CrossFit always reserving a spot for one athlete from Africa, even if they're always last, one athlete from Asia, one athlete from South America, and that over time, because they have that exposure, it'll drive up the level of interest. That's what happened in Iceland with Annie. She got to the game. She went to the games. Iceland got hold of it back home, started playing this stuff, and it inspired people to start pursuing that as well. That's why Reykjavik is one of the biggest and most successful gyms in the world. Katrin David's daughter was inspired by Annie and started doing that. And I think that a lot of the competitive athletes in Norway were similarly inspired by Kristen Holta just a few years after Annie.
And Iceland has more boxes per capita than any country in the world.
It would, it'd be like me saying that, Mikos, if you don't want to compare her to Rich Froning in her country, it would be the same thing as not saying that Mikko Salo was an inspiration for the Finnish CrossFit community, which I think, just because he hasn't had the same level of impact globally that Rich has had doesn't mean that his level of impact isn't significant in his part of the world.
Damn. You steamrolled me. Just to show off a little bit, Lena Richter took 6th in the Madrid CrossFit World Championships, blah, 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 whatever that is. I wonder if Kristen Holta was there coaching her.
I don't see Kristen in any of the stuff I was watching or following. I don't know.
Oh, well, okay. Well, then she is no Rich Froning. I rest my case. Laura Horvat, she will be climbing, right? Outside of being struck by lightning. Or, as Brian said, that's what happens to women. Outside of that happening to Laura Horvat, he was referencing getting married and pregnant, having unprotected sex. Outside of that happening, Laura will continue to climb on this list, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, Laura's competed for 5 years at the Games. Her average event finish is significantly weighed down by the circumstances of 2019 and 20. In the 3 years that she's showed up to a live competition and been given an opportunity to do the full test, she's placed second, and third. 3 of the women that have beaten her out of the 4 are Tia-Clair Toomey. Anybody else on this list, everyone else on this list, apart from Katrin Davidsdottir, has never beaten Tia-Clair Toomey at the Games. So it's almost like winning those 2 years. And then she lost to Mal O'Brien this year. We talked a little bit about that earlier in the show when we referencing that article and those graphs. And then she has a 15th and a 24th. Those are obviously weighing down her average event finish and her resume overall. That 15th place finish was in 2019. We already mentioned that she was cut, one of the final 10 cut before the last 10 went on to the other half of the competition. And look at what happened this year at the Games from those graphs that we showed. She would have been cut this year too. But what a travesty that would have been, because we wouldn't have got to see the potential of her fitness over the entirety of the test. This is a perfect example. And if you flip the test,
God bless Adrian Bosman.
If you flip the test, then then Mal O'Brien would have been cut, and we wouldn't have gotten to see her podium in her second year at the Games. So that's why when we talk about the 2019 Games, I have it's not the athlete's fault. Athletes all they can do is show up and take the test that's given to them. The format was so dramatically different than what we've come to understand the sport to be, which is the breadth of the test, the whole test, the ability to do a broad test. Yeah, so it's one of these things, Jeremy. Like we don't want to discount it entirely, but we do have to consider when we're looking at those things, like I talked about with Turi Helgadottir, that a 9th place in 2019 is not as impressive as a 13th in 2021.
Logan, geez, I wrote you off in the beginning of the show. I'm sorry. For $1.99, I will unwrite you off.
And
you are no Jamal Smith, though. You have been replaced. Brian, going back to that list, if Mal O'Brien, when Mal O'Brien takes second place in 2023 at the CrossFit Games, where will you drop her on this list?
If she has finishes of second, and 7th in her first 3 years, all 3 years competing against a very good field, only ever being beaten by Annie Thorisdottir and Tia-Clair Toomey, I think she's got a pretty similar resume to Justin Medeiros. She'd probably immediately be asserted into the top 10.
Wow. How about top 5?
Not yet.
Okay. And the final page with a minute and a half left in the show. Samantha Briggs, definitely going that way. Cara Saunders, definitely going that way. Katrin Davidsdottir, if I speak objectively, who knows which way she's going. Annie Thorisdottir with 11 appearances. And Tia Toomey, number 1 best female CrossFitter in the history of CrossFit. Does anyone look at her, how much blue she gets? 6 titles, 8 podiums, 8 top 10s. She's never been out of the top 10 at the CrossFit Games?
She's never been out of the top 2.
Where did she come from?
The land down under.
35.
Caleb, you should have queued up that song right there.
35 event wins. So just so you know, if you take second and third place, that's 27 plus 7 is 34. She has more event wins than number 2, 3, and 4 combined.
Yeah, and this is, to your point of, when you asked if Matt Fraser's last year was his best year, and yeah, I did misspeak there. Yes, 2020 was his last year. Then 2020 also is where Tia accumulates, I think, 14 event wins or something like that. 9 of which were at the stage 2 of the games where she only had to beat 4 people to do it. I wrote an article before the games this year that talked about, when you choose to have cuts in the field, that you're taking out the opportunity for someone to do really well in an event and impact a stat like that. So, it's like event wins at the games, incredibly impressive. It is something that I look at. Obviously, it's on this list, but in those cases for Tia and Matt, the event wins are greatly inflated by the fact that, especially when you're comparing them to other greats in the sport, like a Rich Froning or Annie Thorsdottir, that weren't there, that didn't ever have an opportunity to do that in a year that they were competing in one of their peak years because the format was different. So that's it's unlikely that anyone will ever catch them in terms of event wins, even if they do catch them in terms of titles or consecutive podiums or something like that.
Man, when you look at these numbers, you see that Tia and Annie are in a league of their own. Tia's in a league of her own, and then Annie's in a league of her own. Average finish 5.3. In her longevity, is she the only? Is there anyone else from the 2009 CrossFit Games who competes at this level? Men or women? How about 2010?
I mean, the Becca Voigt was there that year. Ben Smith was there in 2009. But we're going pretty far back, so not a lot.
Right, and Annie's like a serious contender.
I mean, yeah, people think that she can win the games if Tia retires and she decides to compete individually next year. I don't think so, but there are people that believe that.
People you respect.
Mm-hmm.
Like Patrick Clark.
I haven't asked Patrick about it. I don't think so. I think he would say that the best she can do is third.
Cara Saunders is the only one on the list. God, thank you for all these stats, Brian. You did such a good job. Cara Saunders is the only one in the top 5 without a title.
Mm-hmm. She had to withdraw in 2014, despite being locked in a battle for the win with Camille. And that obviously has a negative impact, not just on her titles, but on basically every stat on the list. And then in 2017, she lost to Tia by 2 points. That was the beginning of Tia's run and the closest race we've ever had for the top spot on the podium. So as close as you can be twice, basically, and but no titles.
Of all the wins, every year when you crown the winner, you're like, yep, they got it right. Like, no matter how much shit goes wrong, people riding their bikes the wrong direction on the track, chains coming off, stupid fucking baseball events, whatever you think. At the end, you're always like, yep, they got him.
There's 2 years in the history of the CrossFit Games for the women where I'm not sold on that, but
yep, okay, and that's where I was headed. Please tell me. Let's talk. And I never even thought of the fact that you think that Sam Briggs would have won in 2014. So in 2014, though, you're saying that Camille was probably the third fittest woman on the planet. That Sam and Cara were probably fitter than her. That was one of the years that was really fucked up.
I think so. I don't want to take that away from Camille because Sam didn't pass the test to get there, which is fine. And Cara had an injury, which happens in sports. There's a pinched nerve in her neck. Camille, was great that year. She was extremely impressive. She was fun to watch. She had incredibly dominating performances, and she earned the title. But I do think that it's not unfair to say that if Cara had been healthy and if Sam had been able to handstand walk, that she would have placed third that year.
Yeah. And what's the other year that you were?
That's another one that we've talked about before. It's 2015. Katrin won by, I think it was like 56 points, and she earned 54 points for doing no work and not trying on pedal to the metal one.
And that would have given
Tia the win.
Tia the win. Holy shit.
But it would have been interesting from a psychological perspective to see what would have happened the next year, because and I've said this every time I've ever talked about it. Ben Bergeron and Katrin Davidsdottir did nothing wrong. They played within the confines of the rules. I think the CrossFit Games got that wrong, because in principle they established 5 years later with the confidence from. But coming off the confidence of winning, Tia just talked about was in 2016 having to prove to herself that wasn't a fluke, and she belongs there, and it was represented in the documentary. You can see that she was herself that. And it was a great battle between Kitchen and the last day. Blow who was going to win. Kitchen ends up picking her a little bit.
Caleb, can you hear anything he's saying?
I'm sorry. No, I can't.
Neither can I. Okay.
Why?
I'm sorry,
Just
Brian.
incredible.
You turned into Decepticon.
Oh.
You turned into your internet connection got so bad that you turned into a robot.
Is it still like that?
Optimus Brian, yes.
It's better now.
Yes, it's better now. We lost you about how you were saying that they did nothing wrong, and that it was a kind of CrossFit Games for not putting in a minimum work requirement or something along those lines.
Yeah, they strayed from a precedent that they'd previously established in 2010. And then, but it did have a big effect on the psychological component for both Katrin and Tia the next year.
Oh, meaning that it probably invigorated Tia.
No, I don't know what would have happened if Tia had won in 2015. You know, it's one of these things. It's like if Fraser had just shown up and won in 2014, or even if he'd just beaten Ben Smith in 2015, without the level of focus and preparation that he had going forward from there, would he ever have become that maniacal
I see what
in
you're
his
saying.
pursuit of perfection,
Right.
in his preparation to try to win and win and win and win. So, you know, it's the story of champions in all sports. You know, there's almost always adversity before the ascension. And so, you know, Tia may say that that she probably shouldn't have got those points for doing nothing and not even trying to do anything in that workout. But if I'd won in 2015, I may never have become the dominant athlete that I am now, because, you know, I might have taken for granted that I could show up and win. I'm just speculating, but.
How often will you update this list? What are the events that
Next year after the games?
Okay, so this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. This list only gets updated once a year.
Well, yeah, it's only considering one competition per year.
Right. All right. Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to?
I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate the questions and the criticism and critique. It is really tough. That's one of the reasons I put this shirt on today, is just to remind myself that other people have knowledge in this sport. Other people have valuable perspectives, and it is really difficult. So I put myself out there by doing this, by putting the data out there that I'm looking at. It's very easy for people to pull out the one thing that they want to and say, look at this. How could you ever make this ranking based on this criteria? But there's a lot of things that I try to take into account, and it's very, it's quite difficult to do. I have tremendous respect and appreciation for all the athletes on this list and the ones I consider that didn't make it. And mostly just want to, that's the desire for it, is just to recognize the greatness of all of them, and for people that are new to the sport, to inform and educate them about maybe some of the ones from previous eras. And if you want to go back and learn more about those athletes, there is footage from the CrossFit Games and all those years. You can go watch them compete and do some incredible stuff.
And if you want to get a Be Friendly shirt, go to sherpa.com. I wish Sean Woodland would call and weigh in. The one reason I put my Be Friendly shirt on is to remind myself that only Brian's opinion matters. Okay, everyone. Thank you. Caleb Beaver. Thank you. Guys, listen. In 85 minutes, I will be on here with Keelan Henry, the only hope that Africa has.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they got some other good guys out there.
No, they don't.